I did introduce the major discuss today on the program, which is the introduction of the 5% excise duty on telecommunication services by the federal government. That bill is currently with the National Assembly, but I have my guest joining me right now on the program, and he is the past chairman of the Kano Jigawa District Society of ICAN, and of course a tax expert, and he is none other person than Ado Mohammed Abubakar. Thank you for joining us on Business Daily today.
Thank you, Chiamaka. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So for the purpose of this conversation, we will be focusing on just telecommunications and not on gaming, betting, and the likes. But I'd like for you to begin by explaining the rationale behind this introduction of the 5% excise duties on telecommunication services. We understand that this has been on since the past administration, that is the Muhammadu Buhari administration. But can you give us a sort of understanding of what this is about and how this aligns with the government's overall tax reform strategy?
Thank you, Chiamaka. Yes, as you rightly said, the issue of introducing excise duty on the telecom service is not a new thing. It came first with the Finance Act of 2020. And after that introduction by that Finance Act, there are a lot of outcry from all sides, from the tax expert, from the general public, and also even from the Telecommunications Association. And that resulted in a kind of delay in the implementation of that as of that time. The implementation period was set up to be that it will be introduced around July 2022. And a committee was set up then, which was chaired by the then Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Prof. Isa Ali Pantami. And the outcome or the recommendation of that committee made the federal government to exempt the telecommunication sector from that tax. That was in 2023. So then recently with this new bill that was just submitted to the National Assembly, we witnessed that this issue has come back again, that the government has reintroduced this issue of the excise duty on telecommunication. When I first got that, I think what really made me laugh or wonders was that the current chairman of the Presidential Fiscal Policies and Tax Reform Committee was among the people who really showed concern, expressed concern on the untimely introduction of this excise duty. He made so many comments which were more or less against this then. But now with him chairing the Presidential Committee, this same thing is coming back. Though it's a bill, there was no any reason within the bill why it was introduced. If there is any reason at all, that reason should just be maybe all efforts made by government to increase revenue or to shift from the oil to the non-oil revenue. I think other than that, there's no any other reason. If I may quote him directly, I think one of the key messages he left then that kept me wondering why did he really present this was, then he made a post on his Twitter page and also on his LinkedIn that if the Abraham Maslow hierarchy of need should be redeveloped as of then, he believes that telecommunication and also data would have been part of the physiological needs, meaning that is like a necessity that really nothing should happen to. But here we are representing this. And to digress a little, I think maybe for people to really understand, excise duty actually is a fiscal instrument too that are supposed to be used by government either to protect infant industries, maybe by placing high excise duty on some imported items that are produced locally, so that the cost of the imported one will be so high, and then people would have to resort to the locally produced item. And another basic use of the excise duty by the government is for the government to really use it as an instrument to stop the citizens or to minimize consumption of any item that is viewed to be harmful to the health or injurious to the health of the public. Things like alcohol, tobacco, and other things. So looking at all this, when you look at the telecom, in my view, I've not really seen where telecoms qualified to be a harmful something, even going by his position then, that it should have even been part of physiological, which is basic need, just like food, shelter, and etc., etc. The bill really came with three things that are added. One is actually this telecom. The second one is gaming, betting, and etc. Then the third one is also on what, on the exchange rate differential. So if you look at this, the last two, which is the exchange gain and consumption of maybe of and on betting and gaming, you would agree with me that betting, gaming, and also trying to protect the exchange rate of Nigeria are in line with the purpose and with the real meaning of the excise duty. But the real reason behind really reintroducing this on the telecom service, I think, is not really very clear to every citizen and also to all the students of taxation.
Well explained. You have made reference to the Maslow hierarchy of needs, and you have, identified where, telecommunication services would have, belong to if the Maslow hierarchy of needs was introduced in a time such as now. But you also seem to have a problem with the timing, which was also something that, most of our social media commenters identified how this will impact on businesses. But let's hear from you. What do you expect regarding, how these will impact on businesses? Some would say that it might, burden businesses even more, especially micro, small, and medium enterprises.
Yes, of course. Excise duty is an indirect tax, meaning even though the tax is imposed on the telecoms, of course, the telecoms will shift the burden to the consumers. And shifting it to the consumers, definitely, I think this has even more or less even challenged the government's own policy, which are of ease of doing business. Look at Nigeria of nowadays, and you would agree with the current chairman of the Presidential Fiscal Committee that his assertion of really saying that if Abraham Maslow law would have been done now, then that should have been part of physiological need. That is the position of the current chairman of the Presidential Task Force then. And if you look at it, I think there is no time that assertion become more realistic than now, because looking at the high cost of so many things in Nigeria, the inflation, the cost of transportation, the insecurities here and there, you would agree with me that over 50% of the business activities in Nigeria are now done through the use of telecommunication services. One of it, just look at what we're doing now. I'm sitting at the comfort of my office and you're somewhere. I have said the cost of transport, cost the stress of being in the traffic and everything. And we are taking advantage of the technology to communicate and even to pass this message. So that is one of it. So the moment this increase happened, definitely the telecom service providers will do all they could to see that they have shifted this increase to the final consumers. And then it would result in the increase in the cost of telecommunication, increase in the cost of data service, and then eventually even increase in cost of production or cost of rendering services by other people. And this is coming at the same time when the government is even trying to increase the value added tax. Remember, this same bill has proposed to increase the value added tax from the existing 7.5% to 10% for this year, and then to 12.5% next year. And then by 2030, the target is to increase the value added tax to 15%. So if you look at this, just by this bill, the increase that would have happened on the telecom services is about 7.5% increase on the telecom services. One, the additional VAT, which is additional 2.5%, and then two, this 5% excise duty that is introduced. So, of course, as I read some of the comments when this thing is doing, I think really these things government is doing, the government is trying to really deviate from its own policy of ease of doing business, because touching these telecom services, especially at this material time, is like trying to increase almost cost of doing the business itself.
You have made reference to the ease of doing business already. The business environment here in Nigeria is not the most favorable. We've had, business owners complained quite a lot lately regarding, the current state of the Nigerian business environment. But I will like for you to speak regarding, the broader ripple effects that this might have, in the areas such as digital banking, e-commerce, mobile money services, and the likes. What should we expect to come out from these sectors that I have mentioned?
Yes, this sector-wise, this may, as I said earlier, I think when you look at it, this is an indirect tax, which the final burden lies on the consumers. So, if this bill is eventually passed and it comes into law, then there is going to be a corresponding increase in all business areas, especially the one you mentioned. Everybody using technology will definitely have to increase his cost, at least to accommodate this recent increase. And let me tell you, it's not only this. We're looking at the 5%. There's already 2.5% coming in from value added tax. So meaning it is becoming like 7.5%. So that is to say, if you're going to use a data, or if you're using a credit, a call credit, or what have you, once this bill is passed, you should expect at least you're paying, as a consumer, you're paying a minimum of 15% tax on any call or any use of data you want to make. And to the telecom services, I think telecom services have been really suffering a lot of multiplicity of taxes in Nigeria. When I say taxes and levies, presently all the telecoms, in addition to the statutory company income tax, education tax, and value added tax, the telecoms are also paying so many things. There is right of way, there is operation levy they are paying to the NCC. And additionally, these same telecom services are paying NIGDA levy, they are paying Naseni levy, and what have you. So, really increasing this tax and then coupled with the high cost of really running the business. So, there's going to be overall even effect on the way they render their services, because they will be forced to start rationing some of their costs. And by rationing some of the costs, I think is what we are experiencing now. Sometimes I got things somewhere this year, the Airtel company has, I think, complained to the public that they are spending so many billions of naira to buy diesel for their generating set to be able to serve the public. And with this added cost, and now you can see how poor mostly the service of these providers are becoming in Nigeria. Because in trying to cut costs, some of them do a kind of load shedding, switch up this antenna to save cost, then on this one, switch the other. So those things are already happening. And then with this additional increase, they will really be burdened with additional tax to grapple with. And then when you have additional tax, you are exposing also that business to additional compliance requirement. They need to comply with these and all this to avoid being chased by the Federal Inland Revenue and other tax authorities. So when you look at the overall on this, I think this is not the right time to do this. And if you look at the income of even the ordinary Nigerians, we are already squeezed beyond what we can do. Our purchasing powers have been derailed by so many government policies, the removal of subsidies, the increase of taxes. In addition to this, you would not like to know that also this same national tax policy is also changing and invariably increasing the tax, the personal income tax rate for people that are really paying a personal income tax rate. And there are so many disincentives that happen to the personal income tax, which would also contribute in drilling and also squeezing the purchasing powers of the public.
I would like for us now to look at the currency exchange regulations. If we can have an excerpt of that displayed with an excerpt of the bill saying that, and I quote, where an exchange of currency transaction involving the naira is conducted within or outside Nigeria, the transaction shall be conducted at an exchange rate not exceeding the prevailing exchange rate at the official market authorized by the Central Bank of Nigeria. And where the exchange rate of the transaction exceeds the prevailing exchange rate at the official market authorized by the Central Bank of Nigeria, the excess shall be payable as excise duty by the seller on a self-assessment basis as provided by the Nigeria Tax Administration. I will want for us to speak regarding, the self-assessment model for determining, the excise duty on currency exchange rates differentials. Are there any challenges that, might be experienced? You have already spoken regarding compliance levels and now the self-assessment model. How do you expect this to play out going forward if this bill, is passed into law?
As a tax person and also a student of economics, in my introduction, I think I mentioned this, and personally, I view this as a good policy, and I also view it as really using the excise duty as should be used, because it wasn't the excise duty on the exchange rate differential. I think we force people to go back, and transact using the official rate. And if people are transacting using the official rate, although that has inherent constraint in there, which I think is outside what we are discussing, but the overall goal is at least this would be used to safeguard Naira, or used to really protect our currency, which is Naira. Self-assessment model in the Nigerian tax system, or in even where we copy, is simply a situation whereby you yourself as a taxpayer will look at your books, will determine what is chargeable to tax, and then apply the tax rate and then charge yourself and remit whatever you charge to the relevant tax authority. So that is actually a self-assessment. So what they are saying on this is, if this is passed to law, and then you have any transaction that has to do with a foreign exchange transaction, that you yourself will sit without even without the coming of any tax authority. You should sit down, look at your transactions, look at any transaction that you conducted, and then look at the difference between the prevailing official exchange rate and then the rate at which you have sold or which you have disposed your own your foreign currency, and then that difference between the two should be remitted to the tax authority as excise duty. And this has been the practice in Nigeria for company income tax and even the personal income tax. What Nigeria has been operating is actually a self-assessment model. At the end of the year, you don't need the tax authority to come and say, this is your taxes. You look at your books, look at your profit, apply all the allowables, deduct the non-allowables, take whatever relief you have, and then compute your tax, and then pay that tax, remit that tax to the relevant tax authority. The only thing is the tax authority had the right that from time to time to conduct what they call like a back duty assessment or a compliance assessment to be sure that, yes, those things you declared that these are your profit or these are your chargeable income and what you have remitted have actually tallied. That is the period where the tax authority will visit your office, revisit the book, re-examine the books just to confirm that those self-assessments you have been doing are in line with the extant laws of the Federation.
Well explained there. But looking ahead, do you see this new tax regime, signaling a shift, especially in the Nigerian long-term fiscal strategy, away from oil?
Yes. One thing with tax is, really nobody wants to pay a tax. Nobody is really ready to pay a tax because it's a burden. But where the government provide incentives and also where the government wins the confidence of the citizen that the taxes they are paying have been really used or have been applied the way it should be, I think that will serve as a motivator. On the overall, the national tax policy that has just been proposed to the Assembly has provided so much incentives, especially to the corporate entities. I think where the law look at and where I consider a bit harsh is in the areas of like the personal income tax aspect. But when you look at it from the corporate side, I think there are a lot of incentives that are provided there. But the issue, I think, with the Nigerian tax, as I said, is the issue of lack of confidence of the citizen in what is happening. We always wake up, hear that this officer has siphoned, this one has stolen social billion, so that is really serving as a demotivator. And also the failure of the government to also live to its own expectation. In 2021, there was, I think, one and only national tax forum that was conducted in Nigeria. During that, one of the Nigerian best brain, I think, and they call him Nigerian gift to the entire world, Professor Akinwumi Adesina was invited as a speaker. And one of the things he mentioned before all the leaders in Nigeria and also the head of the tax agencies was that Nigerians are paying the highest implicit tax rate in the whole world. And he went further to really explain what he meant by that implicit taxes. And in his explanation, he clearly pointed out that despite paying taxes, Nigerians are doing everything by themselves. He mentioned there are no good roads. You have to contribute to repair the road leading to your houses. The educational system is bad to the extent that even a school teacher would not want to take his child to a public school except if he has no any other means. We talk of even poor infrastructural deficit and other things. So all these are things that when you put them together, they're the things that really made the public or the citizens to, from time to time, try to run or try to evade or even avoid tax if they can, because they are not really seeing the impact of the taxes they are paying.
before we go in 1 minute, you have spoken regarding the trust deficit that does exist rather, and that to me is, you know, a major challenge. I mean, from all you've said, quite a bleak picture that you painted. But what ways can this trust deficit, you know, be breached as soon as possible? Say in the short to medium term.
Yeah, I think in the short medium term, for me, really, before the introduction of all these new taxes, yes, it's good. Some of our tax laws are old and really need to be amended or repealed, as we are seeing now. But I think prior to doing this, government should have really made effort to at least lift its expectation. The citizens should start seeing changes in the way government conduct its businesses. The social amenities and other things, the government should do well to really improve in the provision of the social amenities. Government should improve in fixing our educational system, the health system, and others. If government start this, I think that would really win the confidence of, or we win the confidence and the trust of the whole place. And if you start seeing the changes yourself, you see that you can wake up and just take your child to a public school and you're sure that he's going to get a kind of good education you deserve. But when you visit, when you are sick, you see that you can visit the hospital. We should start seeing the government official going to the public hospitals, government officials taking their kids to public schools and others. Because when those started, definitely if they come down to that level and start patronizing those things themselves, definitely they will be forced to fix it because they know also their own children and wards are attending the same thing. And with that, I think they can really win the confidence of the whole place. And if things are going well, developed countries pay taxes even though far higher than what we are paying. But they have so many things in place to cushion the effect of the tax you're paying. And you are seeing what you're seeing. Like our current personal income tax table, more or less was copied from that of the UK. But if you look at the UK, they have a good educational system. You can take your child from 5 to 16 years to public school. The education is free and your child will get qualitative education. The health system is very sound, and then the security of the lives and property is good and others. So then with all those in place, people will be willing and happy to pay taxes because they know they are feeling the impact of what they're paying. But what we have now is entirely an opposite of what is happening.
Very well said. I have been speaking with Ado Mohammed Abubakar, who is the past chairman of the Kano Jigawa District Society of ICAN, and he has spoken extensively to the recently introduced bill to tax, the introduction of the 5% excise duty on telecommunications sectors and some other sectors. Thank you very much for all the insights that you have shared with us today on the program.
Thank you, Chiamaka. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that's all we will be taking this morning on Business Daily. But keep the conversation going across all the social media platforms, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, and of course on X, formerly Twitter. Let us hear what your thoughts are on this introduction and what you think, will be the ripple effect of this. Peradventure, this bill indeed gets passed into law. My name is Chiamaka Enendu. Thank you for watching and bye for now.